Welcome back to another episode of Estate Planning Nightmares and How to Avoid Them. I'm your host, Jon Braddock, founder of the Legacy Vault by My Life and Wishes, and author of the Amazon bestseller, Click Here When I Die. So, estate planning isn't really about the documents. It's about people. It's about families. And it's about what happens when life doesn't go according to plan. Today's guest understands that probably better than most. I'm joined by Andrew Rosenberg, Andy, founder of Rosenberg Law Firm, an estate planning and elder law attorney who has been serving families all across Southern Florida for more than 30 years. Now, Andy isn't just someone who drafts wills and trusts. He's someone who walks families through some of the hardest moments of their lives: illness, incapacity, loss, and uncertainty, and helps them come out on the other side with clarity and peace of mind. Now, what really stood out to me about Andy is this. He believes estate planning is not a cold legal transaction, right? It's a meaningful journey, one that reflects your values, your priorities, and frankly, the legacy you want to leave behind. And he doesn't hide behind layers of staff or voicemail systems either. Andy makes himself personally available to his clients, face to face, Zoom, cell phone, 24/7. Because when families are navigating elder law issues, probate, the aftermath of a loss, being accessible matters. He also, what his clients call a straight shooter, someone who tells it like it is, earns trust quickly, and gets referred not just by clients, but by other attorneys, judges, and even adversaries. So in this conversation, we'll talk about a few things: what Andy's learned over 3 decades of real-world estate planning, maybe some of the biggest mistakes that families still make and why it keeps happening, how estate planning and personal injury actually intersect in ways that most people don't expect, and why peace of mind isn't something you stumble into. Peace of mind is something you design. Andy, my good friend, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, that was one hell of an introduction there, John. Thank you so much, my friend. I haven't had that kind of introduction, I think, in ever.
Well, I always think about, how would my mom want to introduce me?
I don't think my mom or dad would have introduced me like that. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. We've known each other for 5 years now. 5 years.
5+ years.
Yeah. And well, to be clear, it will be 5 years tomorrow, because I was actually curious, because we've known each other a long time. And so I went back to look, and the date was February 25th of 2021. I mean,
wow.
We're up to our eyeballs in COVID, right?
Yeah.
Not that I keep track of those things, but we've been working together since. In fact, you're one of the very first estate planning firms to join us in providing the Legacy Vault to your clients. So thank you for that.
How about that? And it's had to evolve, as you know, John. I've had to figure out a way that I wanted it to work for my client base, and it's not been an easy process, but I think we finally got it so that it makes sense and it's working for my clients, and it's working for both me as the attorney and also for the clients as far as part of a larger picture that I put together for my office. So that part's good. But what's interesting is you look back, I didn't realize it was 5 years. And there aren't that many dates in my life that are important to me, but I keep track of another date, and it's part of estate planning is June 22nd, June 22nd, this coming June 22nd will be 10 years after I had a massive heart attack. So that's one of those dates that I keep always in my head as well. So it's interesting that you gave me this date of 5 years tomorrow. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, well, I known you had a heart attack. I didn't know what the date was. Of course, we didn't know each other at that time, but having a heart attack is another moment, I think, that really brings estate planning home very quickly.
Yeah, you
Um,
know what? I'll tell you a story that I think that your audience will like. So I had a heart attack 10 years ago. It's coming up in June of this year, as I said. And at the time when I had the heart attack, I was 48 years old. Very good shape. I'm a swimmer, as you know. I
mhm.
swim I've gone to national swim meets. I swim in a master's program with older people, like me that still want to swim and stay in shape, etc. So I've been doing that for years and years. And I was at my swim practice with the master's swim team 10 years ago, and at like 5:36 in the morning, started to swim. I didn't feel right. So I pulled myself out of the water and I said, I told my coach, I said, I don't feel right. I think I'm having like a low blood sugar or something going on. I said, can I have some apple juice? And when I got out, one of the guys that got out with me about a minute later one of them was the guy in my swim lane that we were sharing lanes together with. And we all know each other, all the swim team guys and girls, and we all know each other, but no one knows what the hell anyone does. And so the guy comes out and he comes over and he goes, "Hey Andy, what's going on?" And I tell him, I say, I just don't feel right. And he makes me lay down on the pool deck, right? And he starts asking me all these questions. And it ends up being that the guy that was swimming with me, this is how you know it's the Jewish term is beshert. It's meant to be.
Okay.
The guy when I laid down, he told me to lay down. His name was Chris, and he tells me, "Hey Andy, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a cardiologist." So it happened that I had a cardiologist swimming with me on the day of, and he never shows up. He just happened to be there that day. He's very inconsistent, and he was in my lane, and that guy saved my life because I had something called a widowmaker, which is about a 99% chance of non-survival. I had a 100% block that you don't survive. So I had less than 1% chance of survival, and I survived thanks to him and thanks to working out so much because I had all these extra collateral arteries that kind of did a bypass for me. But here's the story, and it relates to estate planning. And I don't want to bore you. And if I'm boring you, John, tell me. But
All good.
okay, so I get rushed to the hospital in the early morning, and I'm at the emergency room. My wife shows up, one of my kids shows up, my coach shows up, everyone's freaking out. And I turned to my wife and I looked at her. And at the time, I had two younger kids. I turned to my wife, Debbie, and I said, "Hey, Deb," I go, "Listen," I go, "if it's my time, it's my time." I go, "I don't want to go, but if it's my time, you're going to be fine." So she looked at me and she shook me, John. She literally shook me and said, "Don't you dare die on me." And I said, "What's wrong?" She goes, "We have two young kids. I don't want to be a single parent raising two young kids right now." And I survived. And I told her, I said, "Listen, we got enough insurance, everything else." I go, "Everything's in place." I go, "Your estate plan is in place. My estate plan is in place. All the assets are set up properly. If something were to happen, it would be a smooth transition and you would have no problems." And that's why I was as calm as a cucumber at that time. And so she shook me, said, "Don't you dare die, don't you dare die." And I survived. And I tell that story in my workshops all the time that I survived and she was freaking out and I survived. I now tell her, I asked her a couple months ago, I go, "Hey honey," I go, "God forbid I have a heart attack now I'm getting ready to drop dead." I go, "What would you do? Would you shake me or would you say don't drop dead?" She go, "Eh, the kids are old enough. You got a lot of insurance. I'm okay."
Yeah. You explained to me that there's life insurance and all those things. That was just a moment. But
But here's the real story, John. I was really calm. I was like a eerie calm because I was organized and everything was in place. When I do my workshops, I turn to everybody. I go, "Listen," and I show them a picture of me in the hospital with all these wires hooked up to me and stuff. And I say, "That any one of you could be in my shoes. I was not expected to have a massive heart attack at 48 years old and not survive. I had no idea, but I survived." And here's the question I turn to everybody in the estate planning audience. I go, "Listen, we all think that we're going to have tomorrow, and I'll deal with it tomorrow." And guess what? A lot of people don't have tomorrows. And I turn to them and I say, if this were to happen to you, would you be as organized as I was? And if not, you need to sit down and talk about it and deal with it. And but that's I mean, I joke about it, but it's true. It's true.
Well, you're 100% right, and you're second person I know that had a widowmaker and survived. Another very good friend had one 3 years ago, and it was an interesting story. He had just moved to Washington State, and he's doing stuff in their new house and getting things set up. And his partner, who is a actual physician himself, and he was out of state. And my friend called him and said, I'm really not feeling good. I've got this going on, this kind of stuff, and this going on. And I can't breathe. And he said, you hang the phone up, you call 911 right now.
Right.
And he was thinking, being a little over dramatic kind of a thing. He said, no, you call 911 right now. He did. It was a good thing, because
Yeah.
had he not, he'd been gone. And, that's the thing. And he was, I
How
think,
old?
45
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the time. And this
Listen,
is just
I've
three
lost
years
a
ago.
roommate who was 30 something at the time for he dropped dead of a heart attack. I just had a client recently who I met with not long ago, and he just moved to another state. And I got a call from his wife. He dropped dead of a heart attack out of nowhere. She was talking to him, and all of a sudden he was on the ground and he was dead.
Yeah.
And so it just things happen. Things
Well,
happen. Life happens.
and that's why, you say, because you talk to people and they always say, well, I'll get around to it. I've got time. It's like, you might. I hope you do. I hope you have a lot of time. But in the United States, every day, this morning, as an example, almost 8,000 people woke up, went off to work, and they expect they'll do the same thing tomorrow morning, but they will not.
Yeah.
And death is not just for old people. It happens to
No,
young people.
no,
It's
it happened.
car
I mean,
accidents.
yeah, car accidents, you name it. I mean, I had I had a my landscaper guy. He did all my yard and all that for years and years, and then we ended up using a different company. He called me out of the blue about a year and a half ago and said, Andy, he left a message. Andy, call me back. I know you do trust, estate planning, and wills. And all. I want to talk to you about it. I called him back, left a message, didn't hear from him. Called him back the next day, left a message, didn't hear from him. Called him back the day after that. His wife picked up. She had no idea that he made this call. He dropped dead of a heart attack, apparently, right after our initial phone call. She said he must have dropped dead after he called you. And he was in his 40s and has young kids and had nothing in place. So, the story of all this, John, is not to scare the crap out of everybody, but just realize none of us are going to live forever, and everyone thinks there's a tomorrow, and realize there may not be a tomorrow. I just had another client who called the daughter called me. Mom's got cancer, and they said mom's never put anything in place. And I said, oh my God. I said, we need to deal with this, or we're going to have all sorts of probate issues and court situations. So we scheduled it. I met with mom. We scheduled another meeting to do the legal signing. I get a call 3 days before the legal signing saying mom's not doing well. She's in the hospital. We need to do it now. And so we had to drop everything and rush to the hospital and have witnesses and a notary come. And we signed witness and notarized everything and got it all done. Within 4 days, she dropped dead.
Wow.
So,
I've,
I mean, people wait. I don't understand. People
yeah.
procrastinate. It kills me that people are always waiting to do things until it's too late.
So that actually transitions, nicely into a question, because you experience this all the time. So, in 30 years of working with families, at every stage of life, right? People are just planning and stuff. But the story you just told, a deathbed, notarization and signing.
Yep.
Um, so you've seen all the stages, and often they're most vulnerable, right? But what do most people still misunderstand about estate plan? This is for all those
This
of
is
you who haven't done it
the
out there.
big, yeah, yeah. So listen, I live in Florida, so I can only tell you about how it works in Florida. Other states might be completely different as far as how documents work, etc. But I think the biggest misunderstanding that people have is they end up saying, I don't need anything. I'm fine. I have everything in place. I have a will. Everything's good. And I'm like, what do you mean you have a will? And they're like, I have a will and I'm fine. And that's the biggest I think one of the big misunderstandings, John, out there is people think, and I blame this on the movies, by the way. People think that if they have a will and they pass away, that it's just gonna go to wherever it needs to go. And I totally blame the movies for that because usually when someone dies and they have it in the movies, the next scene is you're all at the attorney's office, right? Sitting at the attorney's at his conference room table, and you got all the beneficiaries surrounded around, and the attorney's reading the will, and then the credits roll, and then everyone gets whatever they get, and then they're off. And that's the end of the movie, right? But that's not life. So what people don't understand is that if you have a will, you're guaranteeing the probate court process. And they forget about and they don't, they're like, what are you talking about? And what happened was the estate tax used to be a lot lower. Okay. It used to be $600,000 was the number. And people would think, oh, I have a will and I have less than $600,000. I'm fine. It's just, and I'm like, no. I go, you can't mix estate tax with probate. They go together, but they're separate. And that's what I think the big misunderstanding is. People think that if they have a will and they have less than X amount of dollars, today's estate tax is 15 million a person. So it's 30 million combined. So they think if they have less than X amount of dollars and they have a will, that it's just going to go to the kids, automatically. And I'm like, no, it's going to cost thousands of dollars. It's going to take a long time to get through the process. It's a disaster. So that is, I think, the number one misunderstanding by people out there is that a will is just fine. And a lot of times it will be just fine depending on how you set things up. But the majority of the time, it is not the right thing. You need a lot more than that. And you need other ways of setting things up to avoid the courts.
Absolutely. And, back to the movie analogy, you're right. It's always, sitting around the attorney's office and reading the will, and you're going to get this. And then they go to the credits because they have
I
to,
always
because
use
it
the
would be
Gran Torino. You ever see that movie, Gran Torino?
Exactly. Yeah.
So at the end, they got, they're at the court, they're in the attorney's office, and then the kid gets the Gran Torino, and then he's driving off into the sunset, and credits roll. I'm like, well, they forgot about, let's see, they forgot about 10 to 15 months of probate. They forgot about the 3 to 5% court costs and everything else involved.
Yeah, it makes for a really bad movie if it closes out after they divide stuff up and sell this stuff and say, and now you're going to be able to get in that Gran Torino and drive it home in about 2 years.
Yeah. But that's life. So that is one of the big mistakes out there. And then I think the other big mistake, in my opinion, John, is that people worry about dying and taking care of death, but they forget about what happens if you don't die. What happens if you become disabled or incapacitated? And that's a whole nother court system. And people don't quite understand that. And that's the guardianship court system. And so they don't plan for that. And when I plan for people, I worry about death, obviously, but I also worry about incapacity. And what do we do to make sure we don't have to deal with either court, either probate court or guardianship court?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to pause right there for a second, because, this is where estate planning stops being theoretical, becomes practical. And, what you're describing, isn't about just the will or the trust, but it's about real people and dealing with real consequences and really knowing the difference. As you say, the will, sure, it's designed to say who gets what, but then the court ultimately has to do that, and so there's a big difference.
Yeah, and and that's the same thing. I wrote a book recently. It's called "If You Don't Plan, You're Stupid." Okay, that's the name of the book. And one of the chapters, I talk about what I consider to be the most important legal document in the legal arsenal for estate planning. And everyone, when I talk to people in my workshops, everyone says, oh, they say will, trust, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, no. In my opinion, the most important legal document is a durable power of attorney, because that's the one where we worry about incapacity. And that happens more often than death. All right. We're all going to die, but most people are going to have an incapacity before they die.
Right.
And so it's really important to have a really structured and well-drawn, durable power of attorney to avoid that guardianship situation. I always like to talk about that. Britney Spears, you remember Britney Spears out in
Oh,
California and her
absolutely.
father, and then the fiasco of where he was absconding with funds and we had the court involved, etc. It's called a conservatorship out in California, but that's a guardianship. And the question is, if she had proper documents drafted, etc., that would have never happened, and she would have never had her dad involved, and her dad take all this money. It was a disaster. So that's why the durable power is really, really, really important.
Yeah. And you can look at this kind of tongue in cheek. Very few of us are lucky enough just to die.
Right.
Most of us slowly fade away.
Yeah.
And it's at that process where that durable power of attorney is going to come into play. It's at that stage where the advanced directives or living will are going to come
Yeah.
into play,
Yeah.
where you will have a voice when you don't have one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, for sure. And I've been doing this for 30 plus years now, John. So it's a long time, and I have gotten more calls and more thank yous from clients, families over the years for the living will more than any other document. Because as you mentioned, that living will is one of many documents that need to be drafted for a proper estate plan. But that's the one where if mom, dad, brother, sister are put on life support, do they stay on it or not? And to know what the wishes are beforehand, and then know if they are in fact put on life support, what their goal, what their wishes were, are so important to the family members. And so that living will, I've gotten more calls over the 30 years just this for the family to say, listen, we had to pull the plug, but we want to thank you because we none of us knew what mom or dad or brother or sister wanted, but we found the living will and we knew exactly what they wanted, and we didn't have to stress about it or talk about it. It was a done decision. And that peace of mind is huge.
Oh yeah, I mean, and again, if the listeners aren't familiar with the name Terry Schiavo,
Yep, it was
uh,
down here in Florida.
yep, Google that because this young lady had a little planning done and had a advanced directive or living will, whatever your preferred
Well, it was
term
because
is.
of that. That's what created this whole. They didn't have anything like that until Terry Schiavo. Then the legislatures throughout the country said we need to put something together, and they created this.
Get it put together, yeah, because the family all wanted one thing, and the her partner wanted something completely different, and she was in a vegetative state on life support for how long? 7 years?
I don't
10 years?
remember how long, and it was a fight between the husband and her parents.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and then even when whatever decision was made, they then took her off. I think life support. She still lived for X number of years.
Yeah, I mean, crazy.
Yeah.
So the big takeaway, folks, is this: most folks think estate planning is something you do someday when things slow down,
Right.
but your work life lives, kind of right in the moment when life speeds up, and then illnesses, accidents, sudden loss. So it's not a someday thing; it's a today thing.
Yes. Listen. It's not something any of us want to do, guys. Like, who the hell wants to spend money on someone like me, right? To go and spend money and create an estate plan, do a will, do a trust, do healthcare, living wills, durables, all this stuff. Guys out there, no one wants to do this stuff, but I'm going to tell you, it's so important. And it's not important for you, it's important for your family. And you got to remember you want to make sure that your family doesn't have to suffer after you're gone. And that's really what you're doing. You're making it so it's easier for them to transition with life without you. And that's why it's so important to have this stuff. And I got news for you. I hear people all the time. I don't like, this one kid is no longer part of my family. I want to write this person out. Right. The norm in this world, John, is that the norm is the abnormal family. The normal family, which I happen to have, wife and two kids, and we love them. Everyone loves each other, and everything's going to go equally and all that good stuff. That's not the norm. I hear so many horror stories from families about, I got X number of siblings, and this one's, a nightmare, and this one doesn't do things right, and this one steals, and mom and dad, have written off this person, that person. So that's the norm, guys. So even if you have all these issues out there with family and you're afraid to deal with it, deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, all right. So, one of the things that really resonates with me, and I've known this for the 5 years I've known you, is your availability and the trust. And so this is
Yep.
something I really want our listeners to hear clearly. Andy, you meet personally and make yourself accessible to your clients face to face, cell phone. And I kind of think that's kind of rare in any profession, but especially we all think in law. So can you describe what you do, how you make yourself available to people in dealing with, probate and elder issues and the aftermath of a
Yeah.
loss?
Yeah. So it's, I don't know if it's smart or not business wise, John, what I do, but I've had my practice for 30 plus years. I'm the only attorney. I have a big support staff, but I am the only attorney. So the buck stops with me with law, if someone says they want to talk to the attorney, it is me. But what I always give all my clients, for better or for worse, my wife thinks I'm nuts. I give them my cell phone number.
Well,
So all my,
Deb and Michelle will have to have a conversation because all of my partners that I work with all across the country, attorneys like you, everything else, everyone has my cell number. And she's like, you got to stop doing that. It's like, nope.
yeah, yeah. So, I tell people, listen, you're not a number to me in this firm. I care about everyone here, and I'm going to make myself available 24/7. If it's an emergency and you really need to get a hold of me, you can text me on my cell phone or you can call me. But don't abuse the privilege, because if I get clients abusing the privilege, this is going to stop, and I'll get a new phone number. But I've been doing that forever, so I always make myself available there. Um, I have my emails. I'm constantly checking my emails every day. I'm on vacation. I'm still looking at emails at least once or twice a day just to make sure. I'm checking my voicemails. I do Zoom meetings if the clients are not local. We do telephone meetings, Zoom meetings. We do face-to-face meetings. I do it all. It's hard and it's exhausting at times because I only have so many hours in the day. So it's getting harder and harder because I have a pretty busy practice, but all my clients do know that I do care and that I'm here for them. And that's kind of what I do. I make myself available. And I also have staff, and I tell them, use my staff. They're going to know more than I am most of the time. But when it comes to like issues or you really got to bounce something off me, I'm here. And so that's what I do. Um, Part of the one of the things that we also did was we created this private client group called the Estate in One Place Private Client Group, which includes your legacy portal, by the way, which I love
Thank you.
as part of that package. But the other part of that package is that they can ask questions at any time on that private portal, and then I get an email or a text immediately. And so I'm able to answer those questions. So that's another way that they're able to get contact to me. I also do, you may think I'm nuts, John, but I do monthly Zoom office hours. So every month for 1 hour, I'm available for all my clients. If they want to ask legal questions, they get on a call and we record the call and then we put it into the private portal for the private client group. So there's all sorts of things that I try to do to make myself available. It's hard to take vacations. I was just on vacation not that long ago in Japan with my wife for about 2 weeks, and I was able to get away, but I was still checking every day. And if there was an emergency, I would make the call, but my staff took care of everything. But they all knew, all my clients know that I am checking on a daily basis. But I'm getting, it's kind of funny, John, is I got a lot more gray hair around here and losing some hair maybe.
Yeah,
And
I got the same.
yeah, but now I'm starting to get the questions, Andy, what happens when you drop dead? Who's going to take care of things? So, I'm dealing with that next phase of making sure the clients understand that I do have stuff in place to take care of that as well. So it's kind
Yeah.
of funny. But
Well,
did I answer your question?
oh, absolutely. And,
Okay.
you know, and yeah, if you're an attorney, you're going to have a succession plan in place. People ask us all the time. It's like, well, John, the legacy vault's got to live on a lot longer than you. Yes, absolutely right. Which is why we
Right.
have a succession plan in place to make sure that it does. But yes, you did answer the question. Um, to reframe it, just as someone who's known you as a friend for now 5 years,
Yep.
um, the reason you pay so much attention and make yourself available is because you're just a nice guy, Andy.
Oh, I appreciate that. I listen, I grew up in the Midwest. I'm from Indiana. And my wife to this day, we live in Florida. My wife to this day can't believe that I say hi to strangers. Like I'll walk by someone and just say hey. And my wife can't believe I do that. But that's just my nature. And I think that the Midwest people in general are good, warm-hearted. You're Midwestern. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, we care about people and I think it comes across and it's a little bit different than a lot of people down here in the Northeast that are from the New York. They're a little more rough around the edges, but they actually have very warm hearts. But you got to break through the barrier. I don't have a barrier.
Yeah.
I don't hide anything. I am who I am, and I just try and always. My dad, who rest in peace, passed away. He always said, Andy, always try and do the right thing so you can put your head down at night on the pillow and know that if this is your last night on earth, that you got nothing to worry about. And that's my motto. And I've always just tried to do the right thing. No one's perfect,
Well,
but you just try to do right thing and just do right upon others. And that's all. That's how I live.
absolutely. I love that. Um, so for our listeners, like here's what I want y'all to sit with as we wrap up.
Yeah.
Estate planning isn't about predicting the future. It's about preparing the people you love for moments you won't be there to explain to them. And what Andy has shared today comes from decades of experience being in the rooms when families are calm and alternatively when everything's falling apart. The difference between chaos and clarity is rarely intelligence, it's rarely wealth. It's whether someone took the time to plan before the crisis hit. So if you're listening today or watching us today and you're thinking we really should get around to this, let me be blunt. Around to this is where most estate planning nightmares begin. Planning isn't pessimistic, it's an act of love. So I know Andy would agree with that.
Absolutely.
And Andy, again, thank you for the work that you do, for the families you serve, for the honesty that you've brought to our conversation today. How can our audience reach out to you if they?
Absolutely. Anyone, if they have questions or whatever, a couple ways. One is you can email me. My email is Andrew, Andrew, at rosenberglawfirm.net. That's Rosenb as in boy, ERG, lawfirm.net. So that's one way. My office phone number, you're always welcome to call 954-755-7803. And then if anyone wants to purchase that book, it's on Amazon and it's called If You Don't Plan, You're Stupid. And I also have a podcast by that same name as well. So those are ways that you can listen to me if you ever wanted to. But we're here if anyone asks questions. Again, and I appreciate you, John, for just always being a friend and being there for me.
Oh, you're very welcome, and thank you. And I'm going to grab. I didn't, and as long as I've known you, I talk with Alejandro in your office and other people because you're busy. But I didn't know you got that book published. So congratulations on that. I'm going to
Thank you.
grab myself a copy, and I will also for our listeners below in the show notes you will find all Andy's contact information. I'll put in a link to Amazon where you can go check out his book. And we'll just have everything in there for you. And so, everyone listening, don't wait for urgency to force your hand. Give your family clarity now while you still can. Because, as always, remember, your life is your legacy. So, plan ahead and make it a great day.